Hi everyone and welcome back to another video with me, Shruti. You're watching Living Our Ascension. This is basically going to be a series of videos that I do on astrology. And, because what happens is that, astrology is one of the tools that I used along my process of ascension and enlightenment, to really come into myself. And as you might know, one of the most important things about ascension is know thyself, is coming into a knowing of what you are at a soul level. And astrology was one of those things that really helped me. And certain aspects of astrology more than others, because you could really get into astrology into lots of details, but there's certain aspects of it that I wanted to speak about that are more important than others perhaps for the ascension path. And one of these things is the placement of the north node of the moon. And I really wanted to make this video especially for those of you who are perhaps haven't delved into astrology yet, or you don't know, you're beginners. And that's fine, because I'll be showing you how you can calculate it yourself. It's actually not like a calculation. You just have to see what sign it's in, what house it's in, and then you just need to listen to my explanation for it and see if it gives you some tips. Because I remember that, the position of the North Node, it shows us what our destiny is in this life, but it also shows us, those areas of our life where we fall the most, perhaps which are the most challenging for us, areas that are quite unknown. It can often show us where we have addictions, the challenges that we have, and those are actually the areas that we are really obsessed with. And that's why when we don't get it in the moment, we sort of cling to the lower aspect of that energy, and we that's where the addictions come in. And but once we know what the higher aspect of that same energy is, then we can use it in a more productive way, and that actually becomes our destiny. The North Node is the North Node, so basically, is not a planet, like you have the sun in a certain sign, you have the moon in a certain sign. These are all physical planets. But the North and South nodes, they represent these points. They're just points in the sky. And you can say that that's where a certain high level of energy comes in. So it's kind of like, the energy is higher than what the planets represent. So even though they're not physical, they actually represent the point of, if you look at a person's life and you see that they went through the process of enlightenment within themselves, and you see how they did that, like what events caused that more specifically, and what realizations then led them to do that, like what were the main themes. One way that you can see that is through astrology. And so the position of the North and South nodes can really show us that. So I hope that it is with that end that I'm making this, that I hope that this can help you. So if you're subscribed to this channel and you see 12 different videos, because there's 12 positions in astrology depending on what sign it's in, then that's the reason why that I'm putting out so many. And I don't plan to put out lots of different astrology videos, so don't worry about it. It's it's not going to be an every day or every week thing. If you see lots of videos uploaded at once, that's the reason why. Or there might be one after the other, I'm not sure yet. So if you're watching this and this is not your sign, just wait for your sign to come. And so what I'm going to do is, first I'm just going to give you a little bit more of the introduction, and especially you need to check which house and sign it's in, so that you can then find that video on my channel related to that house and sign and listen to those two videos. So what you need to do is, if you don't know, if you already follow astrology and you already know, you follow a certain house system, because in astrology there's different systems, house systems, which can, and depending on which system you use, the sign, not the sign, but the house position most likely of your South and North node can be different. So if you already use astrology, then you can use whatever house system you use. That's fine. You can listen to my interpretation for it. But if you don't, then I follow the whole house system, and I really like this system. And it's also the simplest to understand as well, so it's quite easy. I will explain it in just a second. It's not hard, so don't worry about it. So what you need to do is click the link below this video. When you check the description below this video, you'll see a link to a website where you can go and you can enter your birth information, and it'll generate your astrology chart. And on that astrology chart, then you can check your north node, where it is. And so the information that you need before you go to this website is your birth date, the place and the place of birth, as well as the exact time of birth. So if you don't know your time of birth within like 10-15 minutes, if it's not accurate, then only check the sign of your north node, because the sign should remain the same, no matter, as long as you have the day right, the birth day. But the time, changes the house that it's placed in, like where on the wheel it is. If you don't know your birth time, then just listen to the video for the sign. So for example, my north node is in the sign of Taurus, and it's in the 11th house. But if I don't know my time of birth, I will just look at north node or Rahu in Taurus, and I won't really check because I don't know which house it's in, because I don't know my time of birth. But if you know that your time of birth, which should be most of you, and this needs to be accurate, so check it from like a birth certificate or another kind of official document. If you know your birth time, then enter that information, and you'll know which house it's in as well. And then listen to 2 videos then. So first listen to the house video, and then listen to the sign video. And I've drawn a chart here that I can show you an example. When you go on that link and you enter the information, one of the charts on that page will be a circular one like this. So check the circular chart and look for this RA. This is Rahu, or it's also called the north node. In Vedic or Indian astrology, it's known as Rahu. The north node is known as Rahu. And the opposite is Ketu. Ketu is the south node. And south node shows what our past has been like, what our default patterns are. And Rahu shows what we are coming into, what our destiny in this life is, what purpose we are here to fulfill. So now, as you can see, we're going to focus a little bit more on the north node, because that is what we need to fulfill, and the south node is basically what we're leaving behind. So you'll see me mention this more, much more, but this whole axis is important. So the Rahu or the north node, for my chart, is in the sign of Taurus and is in the 11th house. And how do you know this is the 11th house? Is because the first house is always this one. If you look on the chart, on the western side, it'll be over here on the western side. This is the first house always on a circular chart. So mine is Cancer. So this is 1. You always count the first house first. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then you get to 11. So this is the 11th house. So my north node is in the 11th house. And like I said, it's in the sign of Taurus. So here I've written down, so write down these 2 things, that north node or Rahu is in the 11th house. So this is the video I'll see first, north node or Rahu in 11th house. The video I'll watch second is north node or Rahu in the sign of Taurus. So these are the 2 videos now that I need to watch. So once you go on this website and you have this figured out, you write these 2 things so that you don't get confused, then you can watch these 2 videos. And if you have any questions, if you're watching this video, you have any questions, you're confused, let me know in the comments below, and I'll try and help you out if I can. And now let's begin, with a little bit of explanation of what the north and south nodes are, and then I will, proceed to the position. So the south node in astrology is known as, our past. If you believe in past lives, it shows us what kind of a past life we had, what we were in our past life. If you don't believe in past lives, then it's something that the past that we have had in this life, our childhood, when we were growing up, let's say like the first 20-30 years of our life. And the north node then shows us what is our actual destiny in this life. And the south node, representing our past, shows us what we're good at. It's something that we are quite good at already, that we have established ourselves in. Imagine like if it's like a past life, we've actually done that already. It's something that we have are quite mature in, but that doesn't mean that we have fully mastered it. And then how do we master it though? You know, it can be an area in life, the South Node, where we are a little bit dissatisfied. And how do we make that complete? You know, how do we become satisfied in it and become fully complete in that life, in that area of life, is if we develop where our North Node is placed. So we are, you know, lots of astrologers say that you need to let go of the position of the where the South Node is, like whatever the South Node represents in your life, let go of that area and only focus on the North. It's not really exactly like that, but the thing is that wherever your South Node is sitting, you just need to it's something that comes easily to you, you know, that you can fall back upon, but there isn't as much of an dedicated effort needed in that area of life, because if you overdo that, then it becomes stagnant. So how it will expand is when you go towards what the North Node represents, and then not only will that area, unknown area of the North Node of your destiny flourish, but also this area that you are good at but have not fully mastered, this also becomes mastered. So the two opposite ends come together, and that's when transcendence happens, because that is how we transcend duality. So all of us in our heads, you know, in the beginning, we have why we haven't become enlightened yet is because there is some part of us that considers something as good or bad, you know, weighs this one as better than the other, and the other is not something we have fully gone into, we haven't fully embraced. So when we actually go in this direction of the North Node, we fully embrace it in a grounded way, in a way that's not you know, ungrounded, or trying to do it in a quick way, in a superficial way, but we actually delve into it there. And this is something that, you know, where the South Node is, we're quite developed in it. When the two of them come together, then both of them grow. It becomes that yin yang, that balance, and that means that through that area of life and the struggles that we've had within it, and then the realizations, we transcend. So when we truly do that, that's when the enlightenment process happens. And you know, if you check the charts of people who you know, perhaps have reached a certain level in their enlightenment, you can see that, you know, the events that happened in their life that caused that, both the problems and the transcendence, you know, a big part of it is related to this axis. So this is the axis, according to me. I've never read this, but according to me, this is how we transcend duality. So that's our life purpose in this life. You know, you might have a certain job, like let's say you're a teacher, or let's say you're a doctor, because the sign of Virgo is a doctor. Let's say your sun is in Virgo, or you know, you are a doctor, but that doesn't mean necessarily that you came into this life to become a doctor. It's just your job, it's what you do. You know, let's say your North Node is in another sign that represents being a pioneer or something, then your main purpose was to become a pioneer, to do something in a new way, you know, to really develop that, to forge new paths. And because your sun is in Virgo, you do that as a doctor. You know, you could have easily done that if your sun was somewhere else. You could have easily done that being a pioneer, you know, being a teacher, being you know, a homemaker, whatever it might be. But the main purpose for which you incarnated in this life was not to be a doctor, it's to be a pioneer, to do things in a different way. You know, it's just an example. So it shows us, the position of our North Node shows us what is our destiny in this life. It's always an area that is the most darkest in our horoscope, that we don't know. That's the unknown region. It represents our unknown. The South Node, our past, represents the comfort zone, the default patterns that we keep going back to. And then, you know what happens, like when we keep doing something that we have done, it becomes boring, it becomes redundant, there's some stagnation there. And the only way that it can expand is if we open up new areas of life, and then we bring those skills, you know, then they merge with something we already know. So that's what the North Node represents. And where we have the North Node, it's actually this really high vibrational energy, and we will be doing things in a very different way, in a more eccentric way. And we can be quite eccentric with it, you know, which I'll explain through every sign that when we do that. But what the North Node represents, is also something that when we first go into the unknown, like when we go into the darkness, the dark forest, we're going to fall down a few times. We can't see anything. We're not familiar with that space. But it's something that, really draws us in. It's the mystery. It's the most mysterious thing, and it's like we can be obsessed with it, with that area of life, and we really want it. We desire it, But when we go into it, we can first latch on to the more superficial things that it represents, and those become the main obsessions in our life, the main personality, defects, quote unquote, even though there's no as such defects. But those become the most problematic areas in our life often. But when we learn to see what the higher aspect of that same energy is, and we put our efforts there and we keep going it, because in the beginning, when we try and do it the right way, something, instead of grabbing onto this more superficial aspect of it, when we go deeper into the unknown, into the darkness, we will fall quite a few times. So it's really important for us to be on that path, to keep at that path. And the North Node is said to mature around the age of 42 or 45, and that's when we truly learn, after falling down quite a few times, the lessons of what it represents. But if you are on the path of enlightenment, of ascension, this can happen much before. You don't have to wait for that default time of 42 and 45. Perhaps things will become more grounded at that time, but you can really accelerate your journey as well. So I don't want to keep speaking about this and make this too long, but that is what the North Node represents. And when you combine this North and South Node axis, this becomes transcendence. And I'll be speaking about, depending on your placement, what that axis is for you and what you need to unify, and the negative experiences that can happen, as well as how you can transcend them, and what the positive side of that is. And in the comments below, please let me know if you resonate with this, what particular challenges you've gone through. Let us all know. And finally, I also want to say that I have astrology readings on my website as well, so please check them out. They are relationship readings, because relationships are another aspect of life through which we find out what we are as a soul, because all the relationships that we meet in our life, they reflect our own soul. So it's the beloved path, and there's lots of people out there who are looking for their soulmate, their twin flame, and that's what this reading is all about. It shows you what kind of partners come into your life, at a physical level as well, what their qualities are, but also at a higher level, what that union, that marriage looks like, and it shows you what that union with yourself looks like, so it brings insights into that. They're very interesting codes. So that's one of the readings I have. It's called Soulmate Astrology Codes reading. And then the other reading I have compares two charts. So for example, your own chart, and if you have a partner. So if you're single, you can go for the first one. It'll bring you insights into your default patterns as well. What holds you back from fulfilling relationships, what your default patterns might be, anything in the way. Because when we come into that conscious awareness of it, then things start to change, and then we draw partners that represent that higher energy instead, for more fulfilling relationships. And the other reading that I have compares two different charts. So for example, you and your partner, you give me their birth information as well as yours, and I compare them and speak about the dynamic of this relationship, when the two energies come together, what the clashes are, what the problems can be, and how you can transcend them, as well as what the higher union looks like because the highest union that we can have on this planet is of service. You are here to serve at the end of the day. You are a creator being, so you are here to create something. You are here to serve yourself and all of creation. And when two people come together, they can build something that is even greater than what they can do individually to create, to serve. And there's charts that are not just the main astrology chart. There's these divisional charts in astrology as well, and all of them can things like that can show what that purpose is, what our higher purpose is. So when we know that, we come into it it ourselves first, and then we draw partners that represent it, and so it becomes that actual soulmate union, and not just, you know, any random physical partners that we might have that only fulfill us at a socio-economic level, but also at the higher level. Anyway, so those are the readings I have on my website. Please check them out in the astrology services section of www.livingourascension.com. You can find the link below this video. And now let's move on to the sign position. So if you have Rahu, or the north node of the moon, in the 11th house or in the sign of Aquarius, then this video is for you. And basically, if you have this position, then first we want to begin with the opposite one, which means that, you know, Ketu, or the south node, will be in your chart, will either be in the 5th house or in the sign of Leo. And that defines what your past has been like, you know, what you already know, what is your comfort zone. And people who have the south node there, what it means is that, you know, they have a past of kind of knowing their individuality. So they are very in touch with how they are unique, and, you know, what they can be very self-expressive as well. This is something that they are familiar with, but in this life what they're asked to do is the opposite as well, and they are here to develop, you know, how they fit into society and how they fit into network circles, because they have Rahu, or the north node, in the 11th house or in the sign of Aquarius, which both are about, you know, large organizations, network circles, and, you know, just the masses as well, is what it rules, is what it means. And so another thing that it rules also is the new age, because, you know, as you might know, the age of Aquarius, and I keep speaking about that in my videos. So you know, you might be asked to do something like you in this lifetime related to these new ways of thinking, you know, that have to do with new values, all about equality, and you know, doing away from things like capitalism and just what's the word, doing away with things like privilege. And you have you know, you're here to develop what Aquarian values are, which means fitting in with how everybody is an equal, and how they fit in and create a society and create a community that benefits the highest good of all. So you know, in your past you may have had a lot of special treatment somehow, you know, maybe growing up, you know, you were very loved as a child, or you had a very you know, in your youth, somehow there was a lot of creativity there, or freedom of expression, like there was a lot of self-expression, very it's almost like, you know, because Leo rules the king, is the sign of the king, and so you had your own kingdom, and you know how to shine there, because Leo also rules the sun, and it's all about shining like the sun, and you know how to do that. You know that uniquely, you know, what your soul is all about, and you know what your talents are, how you are unique in that, and you know how to bring that light through. But you might find that when you do that, you know, each time that you do that, when you go out into society, for example, some people who have this position, and I have this position as well, I forgot to say. So when you go out into society, sometimes you don't know how to behave, like, because you're so aware of how you are unique, you don't know how to fit in, you know, often this can happen. And so in this life, you'll be given a lot of opportunities, you know, and you might have a lot of different kinds of social circles as well. You know, you might find that your friend circle changes a lot, especially if you have the north node in the 11th house, because that is the area of friendships, you know, that rules friendships. And you might find that it widely changes quite a bit. But at an inner level, if you have this position in your chart, what that means is that you know, you are the way that transcendence happens for you, the way that you you know, transcend duality, is by merging this axis, which is a social and individual axis. So it's about the power play between the individual and knowing yourself uniquely as a soul versus fitting in with society. And the thing to realize here is that, you need a bit of both. And in your past, you know how to be, like I said, an individual, and to be the special one. You may have even gotten a lot of special treatment. You may be very creative. So for example, people who are on stage and performing, they're very seen and everything, or they're recognized somehow, even if you're not like famous in a way, you had those opportunities, and you're very good with that self-expression if you have this position. But it doesn't mean that when you go out into the masses and you meet lots of people that you don't know how to fit in, because what you need to recognize is that you can have a common ground with other humans. You might have done a lot of work within yourself, and you know exactly what you are, very specific to what you desire, what your passions are, what you're passionate about. And maybe when you meet other people, you feel disappointed because nobody exactly matches that, or they don't, you don't know how to fit in with them somehow. But what you need to realize is that you have something in common with everyone that you meet. If anyone's coming into your life, it's for a reason. They're reflecting something, so they have something to bring. There's definitely something in common there, and we need to find what that is and see the value of that. Because when we do that, then this is how other people can also support us, and through contributing in that way, in the way that what we share in common, we can build something greater. So for example, the course that I did a course with Ernst Wilhelm, who's like this astrologer, and how he explains this position is that, for example, you can be you can have two different astrologers. So for example, one is a Vedic astrologer, one is a Western astrologer, and they have two different systems. And if you have this position, like as a Western astrologer, you go and you're mingling with people from different kinds of astrology, and you don't really fit in anywhere. But the thing is to recognize that you have something in common with all of them. Your common passion is astrology. So instead of focusing on the fact that nobody really believes exactly what you do, they don't have the exact same beliefs, they're not passionate about exactly the same thing, and always needing to be this king or queen, and being recognized for that as you are. Learn to value that there's something there, that the other person also brings something, and there'll be something shared there that you also value equally. And learn to recognize what that is, like when you have those Venn diagrams and there's this two circles and there's this space in between that's common and shared. Learn to recognize the value of that, because that is what will be helping to build a community. You can have support from others as well, because the king or the queen, they sit alone on the throne. This is a saying. It's because it's kind of like if you're ruling something, you're solely responsible for it. You have almost this burden or responsibility on yourself. So while it's great, there's also a lot of responsibility from it. Whereas like when we learn to also fit into society and find what's common with others, we can have that support as well from directions that we didn't think possible. So in this life, you're asked to network a lot in one way or another. You'll be provided lots of opportunities to do that, so that you can see what's in common, and through that develop this identity as well, like a social identity also. And so for example, I have this position also, like I said before, and one of the things that happened in my life, because the South Node is in the 5th house, which is the house of Leo. My past has been a lot about creativity, and like I grew up in a diplomatic family, so we were always like, whenever I was in countries abroad, I was performing these Indian, like we had these different Indian festivities, and at the embassy I was always performing and dancing, singing, acting, whatever it might be. And then after that, even in college, and I played table tennis growing up, because my father is a table tennis player, and all of these things, they relate to the 5th house, these activities of performance and singing, dancing, all of these creative activities, as well as sports as well, is related to that house. So I have a past of that, of being involved in things like that. And even in college, like I was saying, I was involved in both of these. Like I was studying, I was enrolled in a course, but most of my time was spent representing my college in table tennis tournaments, as well as singing competitions, because those were the two societies that I was part of, and I was really heavily involved in both. So you may have a past like this, that is related to such things that are ruled by the sign of Leo. And then what I wanted to do with my life, when I thought about what I want to do further with my life, I wanted to sing. Like I learned opera as well, and I thought that maybe perhaps I'll go to school for opera and I'll become a performer. I always wanted to like perform and do something creative like that, and especially with singing. But life took me in a completely different direction, and that's because of this position. I want to explain through this personal example so that you can relate it to your own life, in your own way. Because my North Node is in the sign of is in the 11th house, which is the house of Aquarius. It showed that yes, you have a lot of talent on your own, like you've developed those individual power, individual skills, individual creativity. But the life path is about creativity for society, power for society, a vision for society. So that's what needs to happen if you have this position. And whenever I try to develop my own personal, something that brings me just my own passion, when it's just for me, it wouldn't either fully give me satisfaction, or it just wouldn't happen. Like like I wanted to apply to opera school, and that just somehow didn't work out, or even when I would think about it sometimes, that that I want to become like this singer in theater, then I would think about how limited it is, because yes, there's this classical singing going on, and there's this technique and everything, and I'll get to perform. But then it's not serving anything greater than that. Like I would have this feeling that it's that what I devote my life to needs to be a little bit larger than that. And of course you can use creativity as well, towards that, but somehow it wasn't that full conviction wasn't there. So there's this passion, but then there's this disappointment. So you can have that with this axis. And how you bridge this is, again, life will provide you opportunities to work in the direction of where your North Node is. So for me, that was in kind of like the work that I do now, which is what opened up for me suddenly, is to speak about these new values. That's what the 11th house, the age of Aquarius, rules as well. The sign of Aquarius is all about these new values, and about equality in society. Creating the highest aspect of Aquarius is power, is equality in society, where each individual is treated as an equal. So kind of like what I do with my work, with spirituality, is about that as well. That we need to have a system and a community where it's all based on love and equality. So once I started to explore that and get into that, then the creativity came together, because now the creative work that I do, which is not just drawing and painting, and that's not the only thing that creativity is, but I started making jewelry, and then painting, and then using film like I'm doing now, recording. This is all part of performance, because it's all like self-expression. And when now I'm able to kind of do both, that feeling that I had, that I need to be on stage and perform in some way, but it brought me some disappointment, or there was just something that was lacking there and it didn't happen. That's fulfilled through this, when you go in the position of what your North Node is saying. And my North Node, like if you're watching this video, yours would be in the sign of Aquarius or in the 11th house. So again, it has to do with serving a greater goal, serving a passion, a goal, and power that is and creativity that is greater than yourself. So now I'm doing these creative things, like let's say creating higher art and these portraits for people, these higher self portraits, and they're helping society, like they're helping other people, and come into their own values and things like that, but also I'm expressing myself. This is my own unique talent as well. So you see, that's an example of how both are bridged together. Your own special talents are used not just for your own personal creativity, but they're used for like a greater cause in a way. And when we're able to bridge that, that is when the satisfaction then comes in, if you have this position here to do. So again, let me know what you think about this, if it resonates with you, or any problems, any special talents, whatever you have related to this position. Let me know in the comments below.